Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ful-on, your Fulham-centric football podcast. I'm your host, Ash Woolford. Joining me today for our Christmas New Year review after an extended couple of weeks off, I have with me AJ. How you doing, mate?
Absolutely golden after the Christmas period we've had.
Yeah, it's been a good one. And Drew, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Happy New Year to you all. Good to see you
Yeah,
boys again.
it's good to have you back, mate. We apologise. Obviously, our Christmas break was probably a little bit more extended than we had planned. We had a few. I had a few personal things come up that meant that I just wasn't
Ash,
available
tell them
to
the truth.
record.
We've just sobered up, mate. That's
Yeah, I was. Yeah,
they're going to see through the lies. They're not idiots, our
anyone
subscribers.
anyone who saw me at Palace on New Year's Day probably would have seen I wasn't 100%. But it is what it is. So what we're going to do really is we're not going to break down the games massively. We're just going to go quickly run over the results over Christmas, New Year's, look at how that sort of changed the mood between us and the squad, and then look at the January transfer window today. And then we'll also have out tomorrow morning a back to normal preview of the Borough FA Cup game, which is obviously tomorrow as well. But so we look at the Christmas period, it's a really successful one for Fulham. We sort of the last game we did a preview for was the Forest game, a game uh, we used the word nutritious, maybe. A good 1-0 win, realistically, considering the fact that uh, really depleted at the time. And, to get that result's great. We then, obviously, the day after Boxing Day, went off to the London Stadium and got on good 1-0 win away at West Ham. A game in which West Ham, if they even had remotely any shooting boots, probably would have scored 3 or 4 goals in. Luckily, they didn't. We took our one chance. We win 1-0. Snatch and grab, probably, but we'll take it. You then look at New Year's Day away at Palace. A nice draw against Palace. It's not bad to get a draw at Palace, but you look at the pattern of play during the game, we could probably be a little bit disappointed we only came away with a draw, especially when you look at the two golden opportunities that fell our way at the end of the game. If they didn't fall to our centre back and our right back, we probably would have had a chance of scoring. But say take a point away at Palace. Uh, it's good to see Marco finally sort of stem the bleeding of Oliver Gazner always managed to get those dodgy wins against us that we especially as we've seen one not that long ago at home. And then on the 4th of January, obviously a really good 2-2 draw at home against Liverpool, a game in which it's probably a good job we haven't done a recording of because we would have all spent about 2.5 hours just shouting about VAR and offsides and what is offside. 2-2 draw, probably a deserved draw, probably should have deserved to win the game. Liverpool get lucky with their VAR call for their offside. We all learned that there's a 5 centimeter tolerance that didn't exist a week later. But it is what it is. We'll talk about Harrison Reed's absolute twatting of a football in a minute. And then obviously the last game of coverage is Chelsea on Wednesday night. Always great to win a West London derby. Always good to get one over on the dog track, and always good to walk away from a Fulham Chelsea game feeling like we fully deserved the result. And that is what it is there. So that is our Christmas New Year period. Good results. Now, sort of in line with Chelsea, 1 point behind Brentford are in fifth. We've gone from really looking over our shoulder before that Forest game and worrying about Forest potentially being able to catch up with us to 9 points clear of that drop zone, looking up rather than down. AJ, how do you describe the Christmas period and how we feel now going into the second half of the season?
Beautifully festive. There's no better way to put it. It was if we didn't have a reason to drink over Christmas, we certainly did after those games. Although some could say that you'd have a reason to drink every time we lose too, but this was all celebratory. It was it's nice to be put in our place, frankly. We've been very negative of Fulham and Marco Silva and everything over the course of this season so far, and rightfully so, to be fair, but it's just one of those to be put in our place over this December period, to have the results turn around to win or draw games when we didn't necessarily deserve to, but still pull out performances around that as well, shows very good optimistic signs. It's not just grinding out a few lucky results. There's a couple of those sprinkled with really good football and changing tactics as well, the ability to adapt in different games, swapping between a back three and a back four in the Chelsea game. It seems like everything we questioned, as soon as we stopped talking about it for 4 weeks, was all covered.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong, and it was a question I was actually going to bring up to you later on because I see the irony in it too. That an awful lot of the stuff that we've been moaning about suddenly sort of got fixed while we weren't there moaning about it. Drew, looking at that period over Christmas, our squad's really dilapidated at the moment. You know, we've got the 3 guys from AFCON out, injuries all over the place. What is left of the squad, although we could probably still argue that some are being underused, has done really, really well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I was
waiting for the question. Sorry, man.
Yeah, no. Has there been any of the sort of players that were probably more on the periphery that have come in that have really impressed for you? That, you know, when the AFCON boys come back, when the boys come back, they're out injured, might have a struggle to get their spots back.
On the periphery,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously Harrison Reed is going to cement himself in Fulham folklore with his worldie against Liverpool. But he never lets you down because he works so hard. I still think he's better as a defensive midfielder, but obviously Silva prefers him further forward pressuring. I mean, the real success story, but has he been a success story? And can we say we're surprised? Is Cuenca. No one at the cottage has been crying for Calvin Bassey. And Calvin Bassey's absolutely adored. Arguably, his mind hasn't been completely focused this year because he's been thinking about AFCON. And his performances haven't reached the levels they have last year. But Cuenca, save for that meltdown against Palace where he pretended he'd been shot in the face, which was incredibly embarrassing, bearing in mind he's a big lad. Cuenca's been fantastic. And as we were talking about pre-show, there are rumours in the media coming out of Italy that Calvin Bassey is being looked at by some of the Italian giants. Now, that would have terrified me. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, this is not me trying to flog Calvin Bassey. Yeah, we want him back because we haven't got the depth. But Cuenca has proved to be more than an able replacement, in my view. And we've looked pretty good. Which game was it? Was it against Liverpool? We had 2 goalkeepers on the bench.
Yeah, Liverpool. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that just says the state. That just says how thin the squad is. I mean, they've taken 14 from 18 points available in the last 6 games. Okay, and you would never, bearing in mind, I dragged my ass to Liverpool to see us basically phone it in against Everton. I will happily admit I didn't see that coming. I didn't see that coming at all. And, you know, hats off to the squad. Hats off to Silva. And I appreciate we've ridden our luck. Yeah. But let's be honest. Throughout this season, I mean, you know, we have been on the wrong end of some horrendous decisions and some complete injustices. I mean, we can start with the away game at the Bridge, which set the tone, in my view, for our experiences with VAR. And then, talking of Calvin Bassey, we all saw what happened at home against Manchester United when he got pushed over by Euro, who then proceeded to score from a header. A lot has changed. I've noticed Silva has spent less time whinging about referees because it was becoming. I mean, you've mentioned it yourself, Ash. It was just becoming petulant. You know, spending all your time focused on things you can't affect. But absolutely full credit to the squad. Absolutely full credit to Silva. 14 out of 18 points. And as AJ said, we're looking up, not down now. And bearing our points tally at the moment, there is no way that we are not going to get another 3 wins before the end of the season. I think this period, and Ash, you've already mentioned it with the collapse of West Ham and the struggles of Forest, we're not really. I mean, mathematically, relegation isn't impossible, but on form, are we really going to have a collapse like that? I don't think so.
Yeah, no, it would take one hell of a collapse, I think, from now on.
So I mean, I think it's changed the mood, and I think, and I know we'll get onto this, Ash, and I don't want to preempt anything we're going to talk about, but I think it's changed. I think it's changed the priorities and the pressures in this transfer window, in terms of signing players, squad reshaping, and Silva's contract. I'm not saying it's a full sense of security, but I think, I mean, look, think about our shows after, say, for example, the Everton game, and we were already looking at January and what we needed. Yeah. And the point situation has changed that massively now. But anyway, it is what it is.
Yeah, no, I think you're correct, and we will get on to what we need in the transfer window in a minute. I think there's a couple of players that really deserve shout outs, flowers, whatever you want to call it, because their performances over the last 5 games have been nothing short of brilliant. And the first one of those is a player that I've criticised an awful lot this season about, the way he's played, and that's Bernd Leno. The last 5 games, he's been great. He's been very good. To keep the clean sheet against Forest probably was the hardest working player on that Fulham team on the day. Probably him alone keeps us in the game, so we're not losing to go and get that winner. Obviously, the one shot on target we had in that first half was a penalty, and we can talk about our struggles with strikers and our reluctance to play to play Jonah, but it is what it is with that. He was brilliant away at West Ham. I know West Ham really couldn't hit a cow's ass that day. It was really bad, but he was good that day. And even at home against Liverpool, I thought he was brilliant. Liverpool are a hard team to play against. Chelsea will still moan about the fact we look really, really struggly at set pieces, and it will be a concern of mine going forward. But you undoubtedly can't deny how good he's played. A couple of other players that are obviously playing out of their skin. I thought ESR. I don't know what's happened to him in the last month and a half, but he's been brilliant. And I want to use so many more words that my brain can't even put together. But he has been absolutely outstanding. Fully deserves all the credit he gets. And we're not even talking about Harry Wilson here, who I don't even know what's happened to the boy. It's like he's gone up levels upon even himself, and it's brilliant to see. And it's really, really taken a lot of pressure off of us with the AFCON guys being away, with the injuries that we've had in place. And it's helped, I think, take the pressure off of other players that have probably had a lot put on them. You look at Kevin as one of those players that a lot of people have been really desperate for him to be creative. And it's really hard to do that when you're coming on in games and we're chasing. So it's good he's been able to sort of stretch his legs a bit, have his little bit of his Samba skills get out. We saw a bit of that against Chelsea on Wednesday night where he was brilliant. Overall, I think the person who deserves the most credit is Marco Silva. I think that he has been very mature in the way he's dealt with games over the last couple of months. And that's something that I don't often say. Drew hit the nail on the head, really. His petulance on the touchline often ruins games for us. But he's been really on. I know he got yellow carded against Chelsea, but that's because he was asking for the red card. And it didn't matter that it was actually a red card. You can't ask for a card because that'll get you carded. And that's why he got yellow carded. But, it's been good. There are still some sort of issues with the squad. We know, as we say, 5 games ago, we were desperate for this transfer window and to get players in. And that's now massively changed. For me, I want to know from you two what you think the most important position is that we find a bit of new, fresh legs. AJ, for yourself, mate, what do you think the most important thing is for us? If we're going to push on, say, we're going to be a bit more ambitious, and Europe now is an actual aim because it's mathematically possible. We're right in the mix of it. What do we realistically need to do to make sure that that happens?
It's a tough one because you think about it realistically and the way everyone's played this season. We arguably have two players for each position at the moment, apart from apart from possibly striker. But then we've just heard that Marco's going to promise Jonah more time. So if that's the case, then we have three striking options once Muniz is back. So it's a really tough one, especially as AFCON comes to a close. Potentially another left winger, but then you could put Cess up there. Because realistically, we've got Wilson and Chukwueze to play on the right hand side, and only really Kevin as a left wing outlet at the moment, with the reluctance of playing Cess at left wing. So having a backup left winger might be something we need to consider. Maybe just someone from the Championship who deserves to step up but won't be expecting to play every game. I don't know. But that's somewhere we could look at, someone a bit more direct, and potentially just one more forward option that's going to replace the likely departing Adama Traore. Outside of that, I'd say the most crucial purchase for us might be an out-and-out number 6 of the likes of Paulinia beforehand, someone that can be that defensive dominator and can open up the fluidity in midfield a bit more to have less of the dependence on one ball carrier and one ball winner. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout, mate, to be absolutely honest with you. I think what's weird is that we've gone from we were all so adamant that the squad needed extra legs. We need extra legs just because of how depleted the squad is. But I think the last 5 games, the results have definitely taken the pressure off of worrying about what's coming our way from behind. It helps that 2 of those results have come against, chasing teams in Forest and West Ham. But it's an interesting one to see sort of what we do there. Drew, I know that there's AJ said it, maybe bringing in player for central midfield that not going to be expected to play many games, but can take the pressure off. I know there's a couple of players that you're quite interested in. Is there any names that you've seen out there that we've been linked with, or maybe not been linked with, that you'd be interested in taking a punt and going, you know what, we can probably give them half a season of less pressure before next season?
Before we talk about players that aren't at Fulham, I think we need to talk about players that are at Fulham first. I think that we need to re-sign Harry Wilson as a matter of urgency. He's 28 years old. Silva came out in the press and said, we knew about this situation in June last year. Now, Ash and AJ, you'll both recall, we were doing our nut about the Tete fiasco. Yeah. I don't understand why this isn't priority one. Yeah. It's not like AJ's eloquently talked about our wide options. And indeed, there's rumours that we've been looking at another left back because there's been interest in moving Cess further forward because he's not an out-and-out winger, but he's not strictly a midfielder. But he gives us something different, and he's got an eye for goal. And arguably, when he came on the other day, we looked a lot more threatening going forward because offensively, he's just wired that way. Yeah. And I'm not in any way, shape, or form trying to discredit or undermine all the hard work he's done on the defensive side of his game and all the effort Silva has made in, physically and mentally rebuilding him. Because to be fair to Cess, he looks like a passable left back now. My views on him are well known. I don't think he is, fundamentally because I don't think he thinks like a defender, but he's held the fort down well. But he's going into the last 12 months of his contract. Why are we even talking about this? Yeah, this should be before I get to the positions that you're talking about. We should Ash, this should have been sorted last year.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be having this conversation now. Because if you look at the players that are out of contract in the summer, if they all leave, we've got to sign 10 players.
Wilson, Sessegnon, Traore, Jimenez,
Kearney.
Kusiasari, Luke Harris, Tom Kearney.
We're not doing that. We're not doing that. Yeah, we've got the lowest net spend in the Premier League. Yeah. We can't. And I mean, Ash, I'm not trying to give you nightmares again, mate, but you remember when we came up under Jukanovic and we had to spend all that money getting in all those players. And Jukanovic famously spent the first 10 weeks of the season trying to work out what his best 11 was. We cannot afford to be in that situation again. So we've got to start future-proofing the squad now. But going forward, and I'm sorry I've gone on a little bit of a rant there, but it does frustrate me. No one in our fucking boardroom seems to have a fucking calendar. You know what I mean? It seems to be caught by surprise as when contracts are expiring. I mean, that Tete fiasco was just unbelievable. But one of the things that I noticed and really caught my eye was Berge. When he started driving forward, he looks so much better when he starts powering forward, to me personally.
Yeah.
Which leads me nicely on to AJ's point about a number 6. I think if I was gonna, and everyone knows it's topical, and Ash, I know you're going tomorrow. I can't because of work. I mean, Hayden Hackney is a bit of a, I'm a bit of a Hayden Hackney fanboy because he's young, he's Nate, and he's aggressive, and he's got huge upside. And I'd love to see him at Fulham. But going back to AJ's point, I think we could do with a proper Palhinha Makaleli number 6. That would be my first choice. And if the rumours about Cess and if the rumours about Silva looking to move Cess forward are true, that would alleviate the problems we have on the wings, assuming we don't do dumb shit and let Wilson walk for free. Traore, I think he's checked out on us ages ago. And I know, Ash, you've got plenty to say about that. It would be, and everyone talks about our strikers, but for me, it would be a number 6 and our fullbacks. Because Tete, I love him. I absolutely adore him, but he can't stay fit for a full season. Yeah. Timmy Chestnuts has got the heart of a lion, but he's 30 years old. And I'm not saying he will go, but Robinson is probably looking at his last summer where he's potentially could get a big move. And I don't think any Fulham fan would begrudge him that. And if I'm right, we need to start thinking forward in respect of those positions. I accept everything AJ said about the wings, and I accept what he said about the striking positions, but we do have options in the squad where we could sort of paper over the cracks, especially if Jonah's going to be starting playing more. Yeah. But we lose our fullbacks. Yeah. And we got 2 players for every position, but is that really realistically enough? Because we are incredibly thin. So for me, and I respect everything AJ said, I go with the 6, and I'll be looking at fullbacks. That's probably a longer term project, but that's because that worries me. And what I've said about the players out of contract. I mean, you talked about periphery players, Ash, and I completely overlooked them. I shouldn't have done, but Kearney has given us a new dimension. Yeah,
he's brilliant.
He is. I will happily defer to either of you two, but I want to know who is better. Yeah. At processing and retaining the ball in our midfield than Kearney, because
no one.
The last 6 games I haven't seen them.
No one.
I haven't.
That's
seen
something them. That's something we seriously need to consider in the summer, because he's heavily linked with a move to Ipswich in the summer.
Yeah, exactly, AJ. But I mean, in all honesty, now the way he's playing, he's another one that I would be wanting to give another 12 months to. Yeah, because I don't know who we've got that can play his role. I genuinely don't, and that's not me being disrespectful to the rest of the team.
No,
but yeah, I mean,
there's an argument.
Sorry, go on, AJ.
I was going to say there's an argument. Quite a lot of options could become available once certain teams are relegated, being able to potentially get players like Paqueta off of West Ham.
It's a lot of money. That's a lot of money, AJ.
Not with his relegation clause, it shouldn't be.
No, but the wages. He's an older player, so he's going to.
Oh yeah, he would definitely be on high wages. That's a given. Andre as well. He wouldn't be on high wages, and we could finally bring him to the cottage after his mistake of going to Wolves. Clearly,
I don't know, but yeah, if you're asking me, I'd go with the 6 and look at fullbacks. It'll give us an
right
opportunity.
now, absolutely. I was speaking more the summer to replace Kenny.
Oh yeah,
There will be a few options.
Sorry. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Sorry,
I
mate.
think
Misunderstood.
I think when we look at it as a whole, I think you're both spot on exactly what you say. I think it's now down to Fulham's mindset and about how we approach the rest of this season. You know, we know from experience over the last 3 or 4 years, Fulham, we tend to completely take our foot off the boil end of February, right? Because we are too busy scarily planning for next year, even though next year's plans never happen until the last day of a transfer window, which is always really frustrating. You know, we spoke about it personally, Drew, you know, when we went to Palace away, that the thing that Fulham could really use right now is a 10 years younger Tom Kearney. We need to find somebody out there who's 23, 24, who can, you know, come in and play that
Put their
Tom
foot on
Kearney
the
role.
ball.
Those players aren't cheap. And, you know, but there's got to be one out there. There's got to be you know, someone out there. And having 6 months with a player who can probably potentially spend 6 months with Tom Kearney, you know, shadow him, learn from him, because, you know, Josh King is that player that everyone put a lot of faith into, but I think Josh has proved himself to be way more valuable further up the pitch than Tom Kearney ever gets to, and we need to keep him when he plays doing that. You know, that is that. What concerns me, and Drew hit the nail on the head, is the sheer amount of players running out of contract this summer, / going back on loans. You think the club would have learned a lesson from Kenny Tete last summer, where he's probably on 20 grand more a year than he would have been if we just sorted out his 20 grand more a week than he would have been if we just sorted out his contract 4 months earlier. But the thing is, you can't blame the players for wanting to push those moves when they're left in that position. It is what it is. You know, we've got 6 months now where the club can really define what our actual ambitions are. You know, we could spend some money during the summer, this January transfer window, and push to make sure we're in Europe next season. And that'll help bring players in. It'll bring money, it'll bring exposure, that'll help bring certain players in. Or we can consolidate and look at just going again next season. My concern is we'll do a bit of both and it will fall flat on its face. But at the moment, the package that we've been given on the pitch, the football we're seeing on the pitch, although at times can be frustrating, it's working. We have a squad that are working exceptionally hard for each other, and you can see that. There's no question, you know, Raul and his need for a break, especially with the World Cup coming up. But the man's playing every single minute he can and doing absolutely everything he can for the squad. So it's nice to see Jonas maybe going to get some minutes in before Muniz is back, because I think Raul needs it more than anything. It's going to be an interesting rest of this transfer window, that's for sure. And there's no doubt over the next couple of weeks we're going to be speaking about it more, especially if any players come in or anything comes up, players leave, whatever. You know, guys, thank you very much for joining me on this one. It's fun to discover and talk about what's been a good, productive Christmas, New Year period for Fulham. But ultimately, the next month, I think, will really show what our actual ambitions are as a football club. Thanks,
Mate,
everyone who's come and subscribed to the show
before
over
we
the last
go,
couple of weeks.
can you just indulge me for one thing? I just want to give
go
a shout out to my mate Gams, who's been quite seriously ill, so much so that he couldn't make it to the Chelsea game. Happy New Year, mate. I'm glad you're getting better. I'll see you soon.
Yeah, mate. No,
That's it.
absolutely no problem at all. Doing that. Hopefully, he is better and back at the cottage sooner rather than later. You know, obviously, we've got a couple of big games coming up. We were about to sit down and record our Borough preview, which will be out tomorrow morning, and we should hopefully be back now on track doing our preview shows. Hopefully, Fulham can get a result this weekend as well. That will help us stay in this positive mood that it's been a bit odd to be in for the first time in a long time. It's nice to hear Drew go on a rant, and it's not because of bad things. It's because of what potentially might be, which is good. Thanks everyone who's come and joined us over the last couple of weeks. Thanks everyone who's come and subscribed to the channel, shared it amongst everyone. We'll see you on the next one. Not really much more to say other than come on, you Whites.